Welcome to your community. This is your hometown. This is Walton Entertainment. This is where you can hear from the community and those making a difference. We explore topics, local festivals, arts and entertainment, and local news. For this program and much more, visit us online at yourlocalstream.com. That's yourlocalstream.com.
So Shop with the Heroes is not a new concept. The only new thing that we have is Hometown Heroes, which is actually the organization, the 501c3 that we established to kind of hold this thing up and definitely make businesses feel a lot better when they give us money and take it off their taxes. And that's only about 2 years old. And last year we had a phenomenal year. I say last year. In 2019 we had a phenomenal year. We helped over 90 kids, and it was just great. And when it was coming into this year, we knew it was going to be bad. We knew COVID. We knew a lot of people were hurting. And as the president, I came in and I was like, look, let's set our goal for at least 100, and we'll go from there. And we blew so far past that. The biggest thing I wanted to tell you guys is, if there's ever a time when some of your money, and I know I'm part of other organizations where you help other organizations, you're giving money, and you go, well, I hope this went to a good thing, and it did a good thing, I can absolutely positively tell you, your dollars made a huge difference in some kids' lives this year. And that's not me just fluffing it up, that is just pure truth. There's some kids that were not going to have a Christmas this year. I know, like when I talked with Cindy with Fish, they had over 600 families that just had nothing. There were just so many people on the work because of COVID. And then the people who had actually returned to work were still struggling because they went so much not working. They were still trying to catch up on their utilities, trying to catch up on their rent and house payments. All those bills were still there. And then here comes Christmas, and now what am I supposed to do? So we were actually able to help a lot of people in a lot of different ways. Did want to give you guys this, I guess I'll give it to you, but it is a thank you card to all of our sponsors that we want to give everybody. And definitely, I think that's it. You ready for the presentation? This is Jana, she's our new treasurer this year, and I'm actually treasurer of the Rotary. And I'm like, I need to learn some stuff. She does a phenomenal job, and of course she's a great part of our team as well. But I'll sit down.
Okay. So a little background on the Shop with the Hero that I've been involved in it. It started off when I worked at Central 21 with Debbie over 20 years ago. My oldest was in primary school, and I don't even know which cop just knocked on the Central 21 door and asked if we would sponsor a child. And so back then, 20-something years ago, businesses would give $100 and you would get to go to the school. And they put us on a school bus with heroes, mostly cops at that time. And we had to go to Snellville to Walmart because that was the closest to Walmart, which is really kind of funny. And we would take them down there and the kid would shop, and they each had a volunteer or a hero that went with them, and they would have to get a jacket and something warm, and then they would have whatever money was left over to buy toys, which was the idea. And it was really cool to see that they wanted to shop for their siblings, or their mother, or their father, or their caregiver. So, even, it doesn't matter who you are, giving is a huge part of their lives too. When we would go back to the school by the school bus, we would all have to go into the cafeteria. We'd have to take all the tags off and black out all of the UPC symbols or whatever, because they were going to children that we were kind of afraid that maybe their parents would return it with money. So it was really kind of broke your heart. Not only see them want to buy something for somebody else, but then to see that we had to go through all this process. So it's been going on around Walton County and Monroe. There's some in Loganville as well too for over 20 years, and it's grown and grown and grown. And we, like Bill said, in 2019 formed it into a 501c3 so that your money is tax deductible, and involved all the other heroes. It wasn't just meant to be Shop with a Cop, it was Shop with the Heroes. Because some of these kids literally are, their house may have been burned down and they see, the firemen show up, or their cop is taking their uncle away or whatever, and they're being told that these heroes are bad people when they're really not. So It really is one of the most amazing nights every year. Like Bill said, last year our goal was, we did 90 kids, and I think our goal was like 75. And we were like, we knocked it out of the park, you know, we were so excited about that. And then 2020 happened and COVID and everything else, and so I don't know anybody that wants to do less than they did last year. So like if we could just do 100, like how are we gonna do this? Because everybody is suffering. And as we all just kept on asking and telling more people, like the money just kept coming in, and then Cindy Little would call and be like, can you take 10 more? We're like, we sure can you take 10 more? And we obviously had to have the money before the event. Once we figured out the money, Bill called Cindy and was like, how many more do you have? And she said 60. And we were like, we'll take them all. The names are given to, we get the names from either Fish or the SRO officers. One of the sheriff's deputies that's in charge of the SRO is also on our board. So some of these kids are just the parents going in and saying, I need to be on the list. Some of these kids are being nominated by teachers that know their parents aren't going to go in, but they know they're still not going to have a good Christmas. So we also try and make sure that if there is somebody that was nominated in that school system, that we call them around to see if they have siblings, because we don't want a parent to bring Johnny, but little Susie can't get anything. So we try to make sure that, you know, everybody is included. And this year our budget was, what was it, $150 a kid, $150 a kid. We had so many that literally on Monday, we were gonna shop, I think on a Wednesday night. By Monday, we realized that we had to break it up. Like there was no way 190 kids could show up at Walmart on one night. So I called or texted the Walmart manager and I was like, hey, can we do 2 now? And he's like, that's probably gonna be better so we can restock the shelves and everything. So we don't tell a child no. They go with a volunteer and a hero. We have become very systematic with this. The volunteer writes down teddy bear, $13, whatever, so that we kind of try to be within our budget. Well, we got done that night and I was like, oh my God, so many kids went to 159. Oh my God, like we're not gonna have enough for the second night. So literally I was up until like 1 o'clock in the morning and I did the whole thing, and I came in and I was like, we were within $10 of our budget. We also have some random strangers that will literally show up and they will stand at the cash register and they will swipe their card. Like I had one person that I knew, and he's like, what are you doing here? And I told him, and he's like, well, can I go shop? And I just thought he wanted to volunteer, you know, just walk around with the kid and the cop or the hero or whoever that they picked. And he came around, and Bill and I were standing at the cash registers to pay, and he's like, no, I got this. And he swiped his card. And then he goes, can I do it again? And so he was like, sure can. So there's also another person in the Between area that saw it about 10 years ago, and he did the same thing, but he did it to the tune of $1,500. And so now every year he wants to know when we do it. He doesn't want to be on the card. He doesn't really want to be recognized. He brings his kids. So when I tell you it changes their lives, it also changes all of our lives too. So we kind of also made it even bigger this year by adding wrapping the gifts. We've never done that before. So we had the Junior Women's organization, Service League, church from Loganville, and they all brought wrapping paper and tape and everything, and we had a room set up, and every single kid, if they wanted their gift or parent wanted their gift wrapped, literally went, so that on Christmas morning, that gift was wrapped, they had something to unwrap. So it was really an amazing experience. So if anybody wants to be involved in it, all you have to do is let one of us know next year if you want to show up. It's a pretty fun and cool event. I'm going to let Bill kind of slide through some of these pictures that were taken. We try to actually have it all set up in front of Walmart too, so that you know what it is. And we have everybody there now. We have Air back there, we have State Patrol, State Patrol, the Sheriff's Department, the fire trucks are there. Airback couldn't actually bring the helicopter because the weather was too bad, but usually if the weather's good, they will literally drop the helicopter there so that the kids can kind of see that too. Who else? Nurses from the hospital. The thing that's going around, I'm going to forget somebody if I start naming them, but and I don't want to do that, but I'll have all the sponsors on it.
There's a lot of sponsors.
Yeah.
Do the kids not take the gifts home with them?
They take them home that night.
But you said you wrapped them. How do you do that?
Then we had the old optical center was open. We asked, well, I mean, we went in there and asked. teletold, whatever, voluntold them that we wanted that room, so they cleared out that room. You can see it back there. They just sheetrocked it and closed it off. So we had tables set up and all the, we also had Santa too, and we did it as good as we could for 2020. We had them kind of locked off. The kids didn't sit in their laps, or didn't sit in his laps. But those are all the volunteers that were wrapping all the stuff. So they literally, they go through the checkout, they pay. We do still take off the tags. We do still mark off the barcodes. And this is the representatives that we had at the time of the photo for the Board of Realtors. One of the biggest sponsors we have is from the Board of Realtors. So if you're a runner, their toy trot, our toy trot is in November-ish, and all the money goes between Walton and Barrow County. So we have tons of people in the community that give, and then they like to come and show up and help, because it's not just about getting the money, it's about being part of the event. So yeah, Santa was kind of behind, and we didn't let anybody sit on Santa's lap. And the kids, if they recognized the hero, they got to pick them out. If they wanted to shop with the fireman, they could. If they wanted to shop with an air vac. So they all, and some of these kids like literally will spend 10 minutes going between two toys, and then they don't realize they can get more than one. So it's kind of a cool thing to see and watch. We destroyed the toy section. That was your favorite? The GSP with the, when we get to that one. Tim Talent looks really good in that dress.
It's a little short.
That was my favorite
Short for
picture.
him, I think.
And so I don't know his name. Him and I think it was John Jeffries came the very first year that we asked the Georgia State Patrol to come. And it was just two that came, and it was only one night last year, 2019. And so he made sure that he wanted to be on the list to come. And he brought 5 more with him. Him and John came again. And that little girl came up there, and they were checking out, and he goes, she's not taking the jacket off. So he just grabbed the thing, and she did not take that jacket off the rest of the night. We told them on day 1, we're like, by the way, if anybody can come tomorrow, we decided to do it 2 nights, and he came the second night. So I don't know his name, but he loves it. Is there more? That's it. So if you have any questions, one of our other things that we tried to do, I'm going to say this, in 2020, we decided one of the other things we wanted to do was we were going to try and have like a block party when school kicks off. Remember the Boys and Girls Club, have the fire trucks there to like spray them down with water balloons, barbecue, hot dog hamburger thing, and obviously that got canceled this year. So none of us, everything was just kind of starting to open this summer, and we really weren't going to be the first one to do anything. So that is on our agenda to try and have that, to kind of kick it off, because it's just one more thing for them to be in front of these people that some of them are being told aren't good people. And just something fun to do for the community. So if anybody wants to be involved in that, our plan is to do that in June. We'll just see how this year goes. So. Oh yes, and then, thank you. We are going to do a collection to feed the healthcare workers of the hospital one day, just because of everything that's going on, and because a lot of us now, I think Walton County had its own little bubble for a while, and then our numbers were really low, but a lot of us now definitely know somebody that we've lost to COVID at this point, and they are working excruciating hours. So if anybody wants to chip in on that, I know a lot of people would like to do that, and if we pool the money together, then everybody can be a part of it. So I'm not sure of the date, so if anybody wants to contribute to that, you can write the check to Hometown Heroes, and it's tax deductible, and it's all going to go together and, support them. So, any questions?
So how many total did you help this past year?
So our goal was 100.
And you did 165?
We did 190.
100, wow, that's awesome.
And in 2020, when people were like, anybody that raises money knows that 2020 was a hard year to do that. It was all about, some people had phenomenal years, let's just be honest, but a lot of people were really struggling. So fundraising was really kind of difficult this year for most people. And for us, we were just amazed that every time we asked, we heard yes. Like anybody that tries to raise money knows, ask. And if the worst anybody can say is no, but I don't think we did. And we got some amazing, like Loganville Ford gave $3,000 and they've never volunteered. I mean, I don't know that anybody's asked before, you know what I mean? So yeah, that's amazing. So at $150 a kid, that's 20 children that they sponsored. So yeah. Striplings. I mean, when I say this, like I'm saying, like they don't have to be in Walton County to contribute, but we're spending money in other places too, And then the church that does it in Loganville with the Loganville police and the sheriff's department helps with that one too, showed up to help us wrap, and they were like, ours has gotten to the point that we couldn't possibly do anymore, so we just wanted to see how you do it. And they're going to probably try to send some of their overflow where they can't handle it to us. So. Anyway, that's it.
At Piedmont, we experienced 3 real surges or peaks in volume of COVID patients. And interestingly, this coincided with what the community was experiencing. I don't know how many of you have had the opportunity to go on the Department of Health site, the DPH site, but they have a very, very thorough site that shows you what's going on in the state of Georgia. And one of those graphs on there depicts the number of new cases diagnosed each day. And if you look at those peaks over the last year or so, they coincide exactly with what was going on in the hospital. In fact, is the hospital peaks, we would start anticipating them to occur about 1 to 2 weeks after we saw the community peaks. The first surge, so to speak, was back in March and April of last year, 2020. And relatively speaking, the number of patients that we saw at that time were pretty small here in the state of Georgia. It was a lot for us, but it was, relatively speaking, as to what was to come, it was pretty small. Our stressors or our difficulties back in March of April of last year were really, were we going to have enough supplies? You've probably heard the term PPE, personal protective equipment. That's things like masks and gowns and gloves, things like that. Those are usually ready available in a hospital, but the volume that we needed to start handling COVID patients was really, really unprecedented. And that put a stress on us. All hospitals, I think, across the country were trying to acquire these supplies, these materials. In addition, at that time, remember, testing was very new and people didn't know exactly how to use it. We didn't know how to roll it out. We didn't know how to operationalize it very well. So all of that about a year ago, that was some of the struggles that we were going through. Well, that first surge kind of slowly subsided and we tried to catch our breath a little bit, tried to increase our supplies, increase our testing, and get ready because everybody was predicting another surge. And sure enough, the second surge came along around July and August. And this time the volume was a little bit higher and our stressors were a little different this go round. We had adequate supplies, we had adequate testing at that point, but we started to see some of our staff get sick. We started to see our staff get tired. Our staff, we worried about, there was a lot of concern when this first started, would people in the hospital would staff get sick from patients? Well, we weren't seeing that. When our staff got sick, it was really because they acquired it at a family reunion or they got it at some other event out in the community. So we were relieved that the PPE, our precautions that we were taking in the hospital were working, but nevertheless, we did see some staff come down with COVID and obviously they had to be out of work. So that second surge came and went, started to settle down a little bit in late August. And by September, we were on the downslope of that curve. But again, they were predicting a third surge. And sure enough, in December and January, we saw the largest surge that we've seen to date. And this one has been taxing beyond the first two. We had adequate supplies, we have adequate testing, but we saw more of our staff get sick. Again, community acquired. We saw more fatigue this last go round. But the biggest issue that we saw with this third surge was a lack of capacity. at Piedmont Walton Hospital. Dean and I were just talking about this a little bit before we started the talk today. We have anywhere between 80 and 90 beds. And at one point during this last surge, 80% of the patients in Piedmont Walton were COVID patients. And that's a tremendous amount of time and resources and stress on our staff. We had to open up an extra 10 medical surgical rooms in the back hallway. We had to open up new ICU beds down in the emergency department. We had to use, I don't know how many of you have been in Piedmont Walton, but as soon as you walk in, you'll notice there's a big atrium there where people kind of disperse to the different areas where they're headed. Well, in that atrium, we had to cordon off part of it and use it for triaging. So it was really an all hands on deck kind of effort. At this point, I'm kind of happy to say that we're on the downside of surge number 3. That's across the state and across Piedmont system. Our volumes have dropped down to probably 30 to 40% of that peak that I just mentioned to you, and they're slowly but surely declining. Really, our big focus right now is on something I'm sure you've read a lot about in the news, and that's vaccine. The Piedmont system, I'm trying to remember this to be accurate, but I think we have been successful to this point in administering the vaccine to about 50% of our employees. That number actually may be a little bit higher because some folks got the vaccine outside of the Piedmont system, but on record, we have it between 45 and 50%. And we'd like that to be higher, so that's still going on right now. We use Moderna vaccine down at Piedmont Walton. Over in Piedmont Athens, we use the Pfizer product. We consider both of those equal in terms of efficacy and side effects. And our shift at this point is moving away from the hospital-based folks. Remember, that was the first emphasis mandated by the federal government, healthcare workers. We're moving away from that now and trying to get out into the community. It's not quite here, but it's probably only a week to 10 days away. And there'll be places out in the community where we're administering the vaccine. And I think the first wave will probably be to folks 65 and older. In fact, I think some of that's already ongoing. Heather, you can back me up on that or tell me if that's not right, but I think that's in progress. Another source of vaccines has been the Department of Public Health in each of the regions. Some retail pharmacies are acquiring it, and some physician offices have the vaccine. So that's really where the focus should be, not only treating the inpatients right now, but trying to get that vaccine distributed as much as we can. And it's a very complex process to obtain and to administer this vaccine. You've probably heard of some of the logistical problems involved in that these first 2 vaccines require deep freeze storage, and that's a resource issue. And they thaw out pretty quickly, so you have to have a plan to administer it so you don't waste any. So it's not as easy as it sounds. One bright spot, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, is that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, which has not been approved in the U.S. yet, is apparently very close to being approved. Some sources say by the end of this month. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine is a single shot. It does not require deep freezing. It can be kept in normal refrigerator temperatures. The efficacy of it is not as high as the Moderna and Pfizer vaccine, but still it's high enough to be helpful. Linda, who's your buddy there? I just saw that. So where we are right now is that we are focusing on the vaccine. And just to sum that up a little bit, I'll say it's been a tough year, but I think we've learned a lot. We've learned things like, how to oxygenate people very effectively. One of the things you may or may not have heard about very early on is this process of proning. And that's a very simple maneuver where the patient lays on their side or on their stomach, and that can increase airflow down into the lungs in such a way that their oxygenation improves. And I've heard a lot of anecdotal stories how dramatic that can be. So somebody's oxygen level can be low. The nurse comes in and changes their position, and you can actually just sit there and watch that oxygen level rise. It's that kind of dramatic. And proning has been very effective in keeping a lot of folks off the ventilator. We've learned other methods of effective oxygenation, like high flow oxygen. We've learned that ventilator settings have to be a little bit different in COVID patients compared to people who have typical pneumonias or even the flu. We've seen a lot of medications. Some have come and gone. Some are here to stay. I don't know if anybody remembers, but about a year ago, we were wrestling with this concept of whether hydroxychloroquine, that's an anti-malarial drug, whether that could help COVID patients. Well, finally, when the evidence came out, no, it's not effective, and actually could actually increase some side effects. So that's been abandoned. We've learned that steroids can be effective during certain phases. We've seen some antiviral drugs like remdesivir come and stay. That does have a modest effect on helping hospitalized patients. We've seen the use and still see the use a little bit of convalescent plasma. And that's where we harvest the plasma from patients who've had COVID, and we administer that to folks who currently have COVID, hoping that those antibodies will help them. Quite honestly, the effect of that's been very modest and maybe slight. I don't see our physicians using that quite as much as they use the next product I'm going to talk about, and that's monoclonal antibodies. And monoclonal antibodies are manufactured, man-made antibodies towards the COVID virus. This is administered in the ambulatory setting. It's not used in hospitalized patients right now, but it's mainly to try to prevent people who have diagnosed COVID from having to come into the hospital. And it's proven pretty effective. That's a definite weapon in this. And then with all of these therapies that I've just mentioned, it's incredibly important about the timing. Just take, for example, the monoclonal antibodies that I just mentioned. That needs to be given as early as possible after the diagnosis of COVID. Fact is, the window's 0 to 10 days after your diagnosis. So we have learned a lot. We're learning a lot about the vaccine right now. And I think all these things taken together have really produced a decrease in hospitalizations. And if you are hospitalized, your chances of having to go into the ICU are lower, and the death rate has fallen. So I think that a lot of progress has been made. We're far from through this. There's some folks now who are predicting a fourth surge. I don't know many details on that. I don't know why the timing is predicted as it is, but sometime in early to mid-summer. So we'll have to obviously kind of wait and see. But it's just very important right now that we continue to do what we're doing. Get that vaccine out there, continue to distance, wash your hands, wear masks, be conscious of all those things. So with that, I'll stop. And, I really would like to entertain any questions or thoughts that you folks have, or what your experience has been. And by the way, Linda, how are you doing?
Doing well. The night shift crew has been phenomenal. And like you said, everybody is tired, but the teamwork has just been so impressive. And it's very heartwarming to see the care that they're giving. Yeah,
it is. It is. There's some sad stories and a lot of sad, but there are also some really, really good stories. Early on in this pandemic, and I think y'all did this too, Linda, to a certain extent there at Walton, but here in Athens, when patients had been in the hospital for quite a while and they were being discharged, there would be a big ceremony. So the staff would line the hallways, and when folks got, wheeled out in a wheelchair to their car and their family was waiting. I mean, we've had some real celebrations at both places. It's been very emotional.
Yeah,
this has been incredible.
Dr. Senior, if I could just say something just for a moment, just kind of a shout out to your staff and Heather and Linda as well. Heather kind of initiated a program, I guess you could say, for the staff in Walton if you wanted to adopt a healthcare worker by sending cards or anything to say, we appreciate you and the long hours and what you're doing. Stay, if the need to stay away from your family to take care of our family, that sort of thing. So I personally would like to say thank you to all the healthcare workers that, not just our healthcare workers, because everybody that is in our community I know that they have helped in one way or another with family members, with patients, whether it's, feeding children, taking care of children while this is going on. But just a shout out, because you are our guest this morning, to Heather and Linda both for what they do. And also Heather taking the donations of the snacks and the meals for the staff during the day and the evening shifts as well. So just
Thanks for
shout
saying
out to both those wonderful ladies.
Well, you're absolutely right. That the donations have been just overwhelming, and the support. I guess this sounds a little trite, but during a time like this, you really get to know people.
Yeah.
People that you work with.
Absolutely.
And there's some really, really, really good people. There in Monroe and here in Athens too. I just, I can't say enough about them. The bad part about all that is that everybody's gained weight. So we have eaten that food and we have welcomed it with open arms, and we got some work to do. But thank you.
Thank you very much, Miss Dina. I appreciate you adopting me. I love the cards and just all the cards that the staff get. It just brightens their day. Like I said, I get to see them at night shift now, and just a little bitty thank you, and especially the cards from the kids are just so heartwarming. And we've got them posted up in our break rooms and our offices, just all over. That's very tender.
Yeah, it is. It is. It is.
So any questions for Dr. Senior? I know we need to do them one at a time, so.
Lynn, this is Bob Summers.
Yes.
Can you
ahead,
hear me? Can you hear me?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I got a question for the doctor.
Hey, Summers.
How come the school system is put on the lower level for getting shots, say teachers and staff within the school? Because they're also a first responder. But I keep hearing, well, okay, teachers can go back to work without being vaccinated. I think that's a real issue of not necessarily the medical profession, but I think if we could have enough vaccine for these teachers to go back to school, I think that's a real good thing, because I'm married to a teacher, and I tell you what, she definitely has a lot of fear because of different kids that we have no idea from the background. And,
well, Mr. Summers, I tell you what, I totally agree with you. And, Linda, Heather, myself, we don't have any power over how that's distributed and how that's decided. But I wonder, if we ever have to weather one of these storms again, whether people will reconsider that. I know one of the things that's kind of interesting about the pandemic, though, you've heard a lot of comparisons to the flu pandemic back in 1917, 1918. You've heard people talk about that. The number of deaths back then were much more than COVID. As bad as COVID has been, it wasn't as bad as the flu pandemic back in 17 and 18. And the reason behind that is mainly that the flu back then affected children. The COVID pandemic has really spared the younger population to a larger degree than back in 1917 and 18 anyway. Now, young folks still get affected by it. I don't mean to say that. And there's some who have died from COVID, but not to the extent that the older population has. So I don't know if that had any rationale into why they decided not to put teachers in the first wave. I don't know that, Bob. I do think that trying to get kids back to school it should be a priority. I think there's a lot of benefits from that, as you probably know better than anybody, or your wife does. And to do that, though, you've really got to have those teachers protected. So I really wish that we could have rolled out the vaccine to them sooner, and I hope that we'll do it promptly once we're allowed to. I think your point is a good one.
Okay, thank you very much.
Anyone else? I know you're all going to think of questions when we end this call, but if you have questions that have just been, bugging you or whatever, Dr. Senior's here. Now's your time to ask.
Dina, I have a question. This is Faith Downey. I work with the health departments.
Okay.
I have a lot of patients in Walton County that don't have insurance and need help. Is there anything that the Walton County Hospital can do for them?
Hey, Ms. Downey, this is Dr. Senior again. So in what respect? You mean in terms of getting the vaccine?
No, this is more in terms of getting any medical, like I mainly deal with women who have breast problems, need mammograms and things like that, need surgery on their breast. And I didn't know if the hospital had like an indigent fund that they can use.
Yeah, good question. Heather, I don't know if you can speak to this. I don't know specifically. I know that nobody, Faith, nobody's turned away. Whether there's any specific arrangements for that, I don't know. We can certainly check into that, see if there's any designated funds. Heather, do you know anything about that?
I don't. I am currently working on a few things though for community benefit. That would definitely fall under community benefit. So I'll bring that up and see if I can't find out specific for breast surgery and mammograms and whatnot. And Faith, I will reach back out to you.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask. If I didn't know who to call to ask these questions to.
Yeah, I'd love to connect with you after this.
Okay.
Faith,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, excuse me. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that kind of brings up another interesting point, and that is that early on, and even all the way up through this past summer, a lot of people were neglecting themselves in terms of healthcare needs, normal maintenance kind of things like mammography and colonoscopies and normal checkups, because they were afraid to go to the doctor's office or afraid to go to the hospital. And we've seen some real consequences of this in Monroe and in Athens. So, our first emphasis to everybody, the message was, hey, look, everybody kind of hunker down and stay quarantined and lock your doors. But that turned out to have some negative consequences, and we kind of turned on that and reversed ourselves, saying, hey, look, no, don't neglect your normal healthcare routine. And we're actually still seeing some of that. So please encourage your friends and family not to skip their checkups.
Well, I agree with you. I have women who have breast masses and will not go to the hospital for a mammogram because they're afraid of getting COVID.
That's scary.
It is.
So Faith, please just remind them, probably the hospital, with all the precautions that are taken, that's probably the safest place to be.
That's what I try to tell
them. It's as opposed to walking through the grocery store or any other kind of thing, the hospital takes so many more precautions.
Yeah.
I'd like to speak to that just real quick. The ICU nurses out of this last year, we have only had one ICU nurse who's come down with COVID, and that was a nurse that works full-time elsewhere in PRN for us. But for as much as they are in these rooms every day, all day long, they're wearing their proper protective gear. They're being safe at home and out in the community. And for that entire staff to have only one staff member come down with COVID is phenomenal.
It is.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think Linda's story there is played out across the system. At one point early on over here in Athens, we have designated places in the hospital where the COVID patients go. So it's called, COVID unit, so to speak. And so about 3 or 4 months into the pandemic, a lot of our staff were asking us, hey, look, we're observing the PPE. We're using it like everybody's telling us to using it, but we want some reassurance that it's effective. And so we did a test. Our infectious disease physician and our intensivist, we went up and asked for 10 to 20 volunteers out of the COVID ICU and off the COVID floor, and we just randomly tested them. and every one of them were negative. And these are people, like Linda said, who are in contact with COVID patients every day. But they're observing proper precautions, and that was very, very reassuring. We repeated that 3 to 4 months later over here in Athens, same results. So I think it gave our staff a boost of confidence, and certainly helped us enforce proper precautions and PPE and things like that.
Yeah, but people watch TV and it scares them.
That's right.
So they're afraid to go out of their house.
That's right. That's right.
And also they have children at home that they have to take care of, so they can't leave.
Right.
I have a question. My name is Dr. Lockett. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
My question is more on the mental health side. I come into contact with clients that are experiencing increased depression and anxiety that do not have insurance. And are there any resources at Piedmont for to provide psychiatric treatment, medication management to clients that do not have insurance?
So, I think that this better than I do, but I think trying the treatment of behavioral health problems was a problem even before COVID. And I think COVID, in terms of resources, expertise, availability, accessibility, all those kind of things were big problems. COVID's made it worse. Yes. COVID has made it a lot worse. And we see that complicating a lot of our treatments over here. Certainly in Athens, you can't just treat the pneumonia part of it. You've got so much else to deal with. And the home situations are incredibly complicated. So no, that's been a big burden. I think we're trying to do much of the same things that we were doing before. Again, if somebody has that problem, we do our very best in Monroe and Athens to make sure that they do have an assessor or a psychiatrist who sees them while they're in the hospital. And then we try to arrange for follow-up after they go home. And there's a lot of different areas where we try to place them for that if they need inpatient care or get them connected in the community. But it's a problem. And we just, at some point you can't find help for these people. Mm-hmm. So it's very suboptimal.
Dr. Senior, do you have a psychiatrist on staff?
We have at Piedmont Walton, we have, Linda, you can comment on this. We have assessors who come in and they're overseen. So they're not physicians, but they are trained healthcare assessors, and they do an assessment and then they are supervised by a licensed psychiatrist. So a conversation occurs and a disposition made. Does this patient need to, are they safe to go home? Is this medication right? Or where do they need follow-up, or do they need inpatient care somewhere?
Correct.
In Athens, we do have a combination of assessors, and we do have one full-time psychiatrist. But needless to say, he's stretched pretty thin. But it's mainly, I think the difficulty we run into more often than not, Linda, you add to on this, but it's really follow-up after folks leave the hospital. That's been the difficult part.
Compliance with taking their medicines and substance abuse problems is what we see over and over again.
Right. It certainly factors into that. It sure does.
Hey, Doc, I had a question. Bob Summers, what is the most effective mask? I see people wearing various type of masks. It can include, the one around your neck and whatever. And they have, I think, like a 3 padded mask. You said is more effective than the 1 padded.
Right.
What's the most effective mask?
Well, the hospital grade N95 mask that's fitted to you, and the fitting process doesn't take but about 2 to 3 minutes. And what they try to assess is whether any aerosols can enter or leave that mask. They have a way to check that. That's the most protective mask out there, to my knowledge. Now, having said that, Bob, you don't have to reach hospital grade efficacy to really have something that's going to help you. And the CDC has kind of come out lately. Have you heard this thing about double masking? I don't know if anybody's read through that or not, but that involves having just a surgical mask on, and then and it's loosely fitting. And then over the top of that, you put a cloth mask. And the concept there is not only the filtration, but also to kind of clamp that down a little bit around your nose and your mouth. So I think that masks of any kind are helpful. Any kind of head wrapping is very helpful. Just having a scarf around your nose and mouth. I think that's been one revelation that's kind of evolved over the last 12 months, is that anything makes a difference. And so instead of we were very obsessed with N95 a year ago. We were worried that everybody in the world had to have an N95. That has not shown to be the case. I think just having some kind of face covering is what the emphasis is appropriately being placed right now, where the emphasis is being placed right now.
And wearing that face covering over your nose and your mouth, not just over your mouth.
Yeah, I see a lot of people put it over their mouth only, and they got the nose exposed. And
Yeah.
And I think some of those masks are probably not properly fit either, because if they hang over your mouth only, that means that it's probably not fit properly for your nose.
So, wearing a mask all the time, I mean, that's not as easy as it sounds. And I think we're sitting here talking back and forth. We can all say, well, you have a mask and have it cinched down around your nose and mouth as much, but that impedes your breathing. I don't know if you ever tried to get out and walk up a few flights of steps with one of those masks on that are really tight fitting, but that's not an easy thing for many, many people to do, including myself. So I think instead of trying to strive for perfection with an N95, like we started out trying to do, we realized that you'll protect the most folks if you just say wear a mask. Try to not let it be loose fitting. So try to do your best to cinch it up, but you got to breathe, and you got to comply with it. And if you make those restrictions too much, then people just won't wear a mask.
Yeah,
Dr. Senior, this is Rick Baker. I work with Dina Partnership and don't have a question, but more of an observation. I was in Piedmont, Athens with COVID, and just want to commend the staff over there on how well they treated me and how well they observed all of the PPE requirements. I couldn't have asked for better treatment or far more compassionate treatment. So kudos to your staff over there.
Well, thank you, Mr. Baker. And I'm very glad to see you doing well. You look great. We're sitting here telling stories, but you've lived it.
I'm fully recovered, and in large part to the treatment that I received over there.
Well, I'm glad. Thank you for saying that. I appreciate that.
Good morning, Doctor. This is Sandra Jackson-Lett. I was wondering, I heard you say in your presentation that you was going to be rolling out your shots for the community or to the community. What does that rollout process look like? Because we have a lot of seniors that has an issue with trying to access the vaccine.
That's a great question. And I have questions myself. So maybe, Heather, please jump in here and correct me where I'm wrong. But right now, what I understand is that the community effort on Piedmont's behalf, and there are other people around the state who have a different effort ongoing, but what Piedmont is doing is that they are going into our records, and they are selecting folks randomly who are over 65 years old, and they're notifying them via email on a process called MyChart. And if you've been a Piedmont patient within the last 12 months, you can sign up for MyChart, which allows you to have access to all your information, but it also is a communication tool, and they're notifying folks that, hey, you've been selected, to come get the vaccine. Let us know if you want it. And they'll set up an appointment through that venue. And then there are locations around where you can go and get your vaccine. And with that process, we're doing somewhere between 200 and 300 folks a day. That's not enough. And that's going to expand greatly here in about 10 to 15 days. That's what I was referring to. I think that's going to grow tremendously. It's been limited by the supply of vaccines, the number that we have. So that's what we're doing by getting it out in the community right now. There are other folks who are doing in parallel to that. The Department of Public Health is trying to do the same thing. And so are some pharmacies. I saw in the news 2 or 3 days ago that Walmart's going to start rolling this out at some point in the future. They've already started it up in Maine. And then some physician offices have obtained a limited supply of the vaccine, and they're offering it to their patients. So if I were somebody who was trying to get the vaccine, I would call all of these places. And even if they say, no, we don't have anything right now, I'll put my name on a list.
Well, thank you, Dr. Senior. I think we're going to have to move on, and being respectful of Dr. Senior's time. I know he has 2 hospitals to run, so I just want to say thank you for all of the information you have provided to all of us this morning, and taking your time to answer all of our questions and present about heart disease and COVID. So we appreciate you joining us this morning.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank y'all for allowing me to be here.
Yes, sir. And we will move into our next presenter, who is Miss Priscilla Waters. And Priscilla, I think I've enabled you to be able to share your screen.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So this is Priscilla. She's with Social Circle City Schools, and she is going to tell you about what she's doing. So you have the floor, Priscilla.
Okay, so everybody can see my screen.
Yep.
Yes. Okay, thank you. So Social Circle saw a need for private school and homeschool parents in our community before COVID ever hit, and started looking into having a virtual program for them to join. What we found is, especially with homeschool, they hit the high school level and the parents were, we can't help them with curriculum. They were feeling lost. They were buying curriculum, but they weren't sure what they needed. They were trying to piece together things, or they bought a curriculum and it was out of another state, so it didn't meet state standards. So they're having some trouble there. And so we saw a need to offer something, as well as not only the academic part, which has the flexibility because it's virtual, for our students. We have people contacting us that have athletes that are competing at high levels, and so they're in the gym during the day and need to do their schoolwork at night. The rigor, all the courses that we use, we partner with Edgenuity, and all their courses are NCAA approved courses, meaning if these athletes want to compete at a collegiate level, then they have taken the required courses to be able to do that. The nice thing is the support that comes with this is Georgia's certified teachers for all the courses. So all the courses our students are taking are assigned to a Georgia certified teacher who does nothing but virtual learning, as well as they have access to JROTC on our campus, band, all sports, any extracurricular activities on our campus. So they are Social Circle City School students, but they get to do their work virtually and then participate as they would like in extracurriculars. So all the extracurriculars, all the sports, all the clubs, band, JROTC, and we're adding healthcare and agriculture things to it for next year for those hands-on things that they need at our school. So I just wanted to let y'all know so that you can, when you're talking to people in the community, that this is an option. And there's my contact information and our website. And if you have questions, or if you've got people that might be interested in this, we have a virtual meeting coming up on the 25th of February where we'll talk more in depth about everything. It's about a 30-minute presentation where we talk about and answer questions. And if they go to our website, they can RSVP for the meeting and they will get the Zoom information. So if you have questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Priscilla, I think this is a wonderful opportunity for the students at Social Circle, and even for some parents. as well. So I would imagine y'all will have a large amount of participation in that virtual meeting. Any questions for Ms. Priscilla?
Yes, ma'am. It's Bob Summers again. How effective is the stay-at-home type learning versus in the classroom?
So what I have found is with my students is very effective because they have a certified teacher who's dedicated to just the virtual learning, as well as I'm staying on top of it and kind of coordinate it. So I'm making sure, you know, hey, you've gotten a couple days behind and getting back on track. And they've been very effective as far as completing their coursework, doing well in their coursework. They come into our testing center to take major tests so that we have a checks and balances before we get to the end of the semester, so that we can make sure that they're actually learning it and not just Googling it.
I was gonna ask you, when they're in the classroom, in the teacher is teaching her class, is she also teaching the folks at home at the same time?
Not with my program, no, sir. With this program, there's multiple things going on in multiple districts. So you have face-to-face and remote learning within the building, and then this is a virtual program. So this was set up before COVID. Currently, right now, a lot of teachers are in the building, not only teaching face-to-face, but trying to teach remotely. Very taxing on your teachers. This program is strictly virtual. These teachers that are teaching it through Edgenuity are strictly virtual teachers.
Okay.
So they're not doing double duty.
Okay, so when they say that, so the person teaching the course is teaching these homeschool people not at the same time as a classroom, is that right?
Correct. The people teaching this are strictly virtual teachers.
I got you.
So they are doing nothing but virtual. And the way Edgenuity is set up is there's video with a teacher giving all the instruction. So the students can pause it, take notes, do what they need to do. But then they have a live teacher that they can reach out to and have meetings with. They also have a on-demand tutor that's 7 days a week until like 10 o'clock at night, where if they're working on a lesson and they don't understand something, they can hit that tutor button and they get a live person who can help them, talk to them, walk them through it via chat, whiteboard, or audio.
Okay, thank you very much for your kindness and your knowledge.
Thank you for asking.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Good morning. This is Dr. Watkins. Ms. Waters, if you could just kind of share, because Dina, I think it's important for everyone to understand that this is not unique just to students who are zoned for our school district. There is a process that for students who are out of district to apply as well.
Perfect. Yes. Do you have anything to add to that, Ms. Waters?
No, Dr. Watkins covered that perfectly. Thank you for reminding me.
That's good to hear. And what really caught my ear was the fact that if they were working on something late in the evening, they could click on and chat with a tutor.
Yes, that's very important, because the students that are doing this are during the day not doing their work. They're doing their work at night. So to have that support at night is very nice.
Absolutely.
Creative artists can offer you a wide range of video production. Call the experts and discuss your project today, whether it's your special event or your company. Creative Artist, 770-267-7368. Creative Artist produces this program you're watching. Call Creative Artist today, 770-267-7368. Creative Artist, they'll put you in the spotlight.